Greetings and salutations, Afrolytes. It is I, AfroMandias, back with another video today. So today is going to be actually a little more different. I'm not going to be going over any heroes or villains today. I know. What a shocker. Afro's not going to be talking about another champion he's created. Holy cow, thank God. You guys are only going to be getting that restraint for this week, though, because next week he'll be back on the grind talking about the legend characters that are actually present in the Great War. But this week is actually going to be much more of a lighter week. I actually just wanted to kind of talk to you guys right quick. It's nothing serious. I have some ideas in the back of my head that I want to kind of expand upon and kind of let you guys know about what's going on, and things are, like what's boiling in the back of my head, right? Just everything's coming back into school now. Everything's going well. I'm actually, just got done with my first couple of days, so fingers crossed for everything that goes well this semester. I know it's going to go well because I'm a Smith. I'll make it through. But basically, today I wanted to talk to you guys about some ideas that I have in the back of my head that doesn't really focus on the three universes that I already have, right? So you already know the three universes that I have right now: Chronicle, Legend, and D.A.D, or Demons and Deities, right? So today I want to talk about a couple of other things that I've been working on, some like side projects, right? Something that's a little more different and is not really connected to those universes. And those three are, say it with me now, okay? They're called the D'Angelo brothers, Tall for a Goblin, and Hopalong Valley. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Alex, Afro, what the heck are you talking about? And today I'm just talking about some things that, aren't really necessarily connected to those universes, but are kind of in their own little universe of their own. Basically, these are the universes that kind of not necessarily. Okay, so let's put it into perspective of the stories I've been telling you guys, right? The Chronicle and the Legend and the D.A.D and whatnot. Those, like, if I had to describe it, those are like for more mature audiences, like 18 plus, right? It focuses on it focuses on a lot of more adult themes like war, sex, violence, and stuff like that. So it's not really like, you can look at it from the outside, and especially from the Instagram post I have, it has more like of an approach to younger audiences, but it definitely is not for kids. It definitely has a lot of swearing, a lot of blood, a lot of gore. So, of course, you've seen my Gasha Dokuro post, that shows like more of the darker aspects of my universe. And of course, with the stories and whatnot that I've been telling, with all my characters, it focuses a lot more on, more adult and serious content, right? With these universes and these characters, they're a lot more, for kids, right? They're a lot more like suitable for younger audiences. Not to say that it doesn't really focus on like more mature themes, but it's not like you're not going to see like, you're not going to see beheadings, and like you're not going to see like death and violence and whatnot. Not like super ultra violence, but like more or less along the lines of, it teaches moral values, and it more or less is a lot. It's aimed for a younger audience, but still has that kind of appeal. Like, think of SpongeBob, right? SpongeBob is fantastic, or at least it used to be fantastic until Nickelodeon run it in the dirt. But basically, when you think of like kids shows that even adults can indulge and watch, you usually think of SpongeBob. SpongeBob, especially in the earlier seasons, was classic. It, has timeless jokes, and the memes that people make of it to this day is insane, So you can honestly sit down, whether you're a grown man or a 10-year-old kid, you could sit down and watch the show and still enjoy it to this day. So that's kind of what my approach is that when it comes to kids media and whatnot, is that not only do I want kids to watch it, but I also kind of want adults to trust enough in that show to be like, okay, I can sit my kids in front of this and it won't rot their brains, right? Excuse me, I'm very sorry. I'm, with the season flu and whatnot, I'm still kind of recovering from a sore throat. But, Afro is still okay. Don't worry. I, just been busy with a lot of other things. By the way, happy late Merry Christmas, happy late New Year's, happy late Hanukkah, happy late Kwanzaa, I'm glad you guys, I should have said this in the beginning. Anyway, back to the whole like kids media and whatnot. My approach when it comes to like kids media, I want kids to at least, when they're watching the show, they can get something out of it, right? Whether it's, mind-boggling action or gut-busting jokes and whatnot, something that kids can just sit down and watch the pretty colors on the screen, right? There's a lot of things that when it comes to kids media that a lot of people have to be careful about, because you're treading on a nice thin line when it comes to that sort of thing. Because not only are you dealing with making sure the show is good for kids, but you have to worry about the parents, right? Different households come with different rules and whatnot. When I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons. When it comes to like adult media, The Simpsons is completely tame, and whatnot. I mean, I don't blame my mom. She made the rules and whatnot, and she says no watching The Simpsons. So I just decided to watch SpongeBob, right? And obviously as I grown up, I watch a lot more adult media now. Duh, but when it comes to that sort of thing, kids are like clay. They're very much molded by their surroundings, and they're molded about the media that they watch and whatnot. And at least when it comes to me, especially when I grew up, I kind of explained this in my first like couple of videos. I am very much like an early 2000s kid. I'm a proud Zoomer, for better or for worse. I am 21 years old. I was born back in 2003. So, I was still at that time to where I was able to watch good cartoons, obviously SpongeBob, and, I was able to watch like Justice League, the animated series, Batman, the animated series, Superman, the animated series, and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. But, I grew up with those cartoons, and not only did those cartoons have like great action, but they also had like stories to tell and great messages to spread about, right? So, whether kids are sitting there to watch for the morals or watch for the comedy or watch just because, ooh, bright colors on the screen and whatnot, I feel like now these days it's hard to find good kids entertainment. You have like stupid stuff, and I know what you guys are going to say, and it's already like almost 2 decades old now, like Teen Titans Go. Like, don't even get me started about like how that came about. Ugh. And I don't even want to go much into it because it's a dead horse, and I'm shocked that Cartoon Network's still airing it to this day, and they're like, "Oh, you're better than the originals." And anywho, I'm not, this isn't a Teen Titans Go rant. This is me basically talking about like kids media and how I feel about it. I want, when my stuff does eventually take off, I don't know when, I don't know how, but I know it's going to take off because I have a lot of intriguing stories, and I have a lot of unique characters that can be brought to the forefront, and a lot of people can relate to those kind of characters. When my stuff does eventually take off, I don't want it just to solely rely on those universes, right? I want kids to have some of the piece of that pie, right? So, basically, let me kind of give you guys like a nice little sliver about what these, stories are about. It's not a lot, but it's basically kind of, a nice little introduction to these characters and these like stories and whatnot, right? So the D'Angelo brothers, let's start with them. That name sounds kind of familiar because when you look back on it, it's like the D'Angelo brothers, the Mario brothers. Whoa, Afro, you got to be careful. Nintendo, they are no joke. You got to be super careful. And let's just say, I don't care what Nintendo has to say, all right? My story is different enough to where Nintendo doesn't have to worry about their sweet little money getting stolen from them or whatever, right? But, let's talk about what the D'Angelo brothers are like, right? So they're basically, they run a pizza shop, and, I'm still kind of writing the story about what happens and whatnot, but there's this gang that kind of comes in and tries to rob the pizza shop because they're in a big city, right? Gangs and whatnot. But it's like a traveling circus gang. So obviously it's themed around different types of circuses and stuff. Still kind of writing it out, but I kind of have a idea of what these characters are supposed to be. But basically in this pizza shop, it was built over and super like a hidden like wormhole, I guess you could say. Again, I'm still writing the story, trying to make sense of it, but basically it more or less, they activate this wormhole and it sucks them into another dimension, and now they are the guardians of this place called Mushroom Island and whatnot. Again, I'm still kind of writing the story, but basically just think of the Mario Brothers, but a little more cooler and a lot more, not edgier, but they talk smack and whatnot, and they throw fists and they're rolling to throw hands. So you know that's kind of the idea that I have so far. And I have this, I obviously have the main villain. His name is Vlad the Vlad it's not Vlad the Impaler, but basically it's King Vlad, the Harvest King. Excuse me. So Vlad the Harvest King. Basically, he is a pumpkin vampire bat that the D'Angelo brothers had to go up against, and I forgot to mention the D'Angelo brothers' names. It's Luca D'Angelo. He's the younger brother, and you have Anthony D'Angelo. He's the older brother. I already have pictures of what they look like, and I'll be posting that to my Instagram page. They're not really too special or anything, but I think they have a nice, unique design to where they, differ from one another. I like to, I like to look at it, and like Luca is a lot more like, not to say like bottom heavy, but his legs are a lot bigger than his like top half, while Anthony is a lot more top heavy. He has a lot like a bigger build on the top, so that kind of helps like differentiate their characters and whatnot. And they also have themselves an ally, a rideable ally. It isn't a Yoshi, but she goes by the name of Bramble. She is known as a carnisteed, and basically it's just a horse that likes to eat meat. And if that's already not a terrifying like thought enough, she also has the ability to somewhat like earthbend, I guess you can say. Basically, she can stomp into the ground, and like she can summon rocks and she can kick them and whatnot. Again, like out of all these stories, this is probably the least developed. I'm still kind of writing things out and kind of developing these characters and what their goals are and whatnot, and how I envision the series being a little more serialized. Obviously it's going to have arcs and stuff like that, and I may make individual videos explaining what these characters are as well. Not really sure yet, but that's kind of what I have for the D'Angelo brothers, is that they basically stop the Harvest King from taking over Mushroom Island and protecting the princess, yada yada yada. But enough about that. Let's talk about the second series that I've been working on, and that is Tall for a Goblin. Again, this one I would even say this is a little less developed compared to the other series, but basically Tall for a Goblin is about a really, really tall goblin. I know, shocking, right? But there's a lot more to his character. He's he's very much like an outgoing, a very much free-spirited kind of character. Think of him as like Sonic the Hedgehog. He's very cool. He has an attitude, blah blah blah. But he's not going to be corny or anything, right? At least I'm going to try to not make him corny. But excuse me. But basically, he is a bartender in this goblin village, and obviously when he was growing up he was seen as very different, and all the other goblins didn't want to really like mess with him because he was tall, so it's like, are you really a goblin, or are you like some dirty halfling or something? And it's like, no, he's just a really, really tall goblin. And I thought about it to myself. I'm like, I wonder if there are any tall goblins. That's kind of how I thought about him, so I'm like, tall goblin, and then it just kind of worked from there. And guess what his name is? Tall the Goblin. He's pretty unique. And I also have a picture of him. I'll be posting that to my Instagram soon. But more or less it's just kind of him protecting this village of goblins. And he also has some allies along the way too. He has Solomon the Sloth. He basically is the brains of the group. He has the ability to like build stuff and whatnot, and he's like a really good savant when it comes to technology and whatnot. And he has like a wrench that can turn into different weapons. Obviously a giant wrench, right? But it can also form into like a sniper rifle or a plasma gun or whatever the case may be. The wrench gun can do it. But he also has this character, and I really like this character because I actually had him in my D&D session. He was one of my characters I created. His name is Joel Redtusk, and that is spelled J-O apostrophe L Redtusk. And basically he's a giant elephant man from an elephant clan, and he's the last of his kind and whatnot, or or so we think. Maybe there are more elephants out there. Wink, wink, blink, blink, double wink or whatever. But that's kind of his story. And they made a couple other characters along the way. There is the main villain is this goblin known as Nurgle, and he basically, he uses the combination of science and magic to kind of try to take over the world or whatnot. And he's basically the Dr. Eggman to Tall Sonic and whatever and whatnot. But in that creation, he created a clone of Tall known as Mohawk. And also, I forgot to mention, but basically, in Tall for a Goblin, Tall the Goblin, like he obviously is tall, right? Or at least tall for a goblin. But he basically has really long legs, so he uses that in his combat arsenal. Basically, he doesn't really use his hands because he values his hands because him being a bartender and whatnot, you want that on the rocks, sweetheart, or whatever. So he doesn't use his hands, but instead he uses his feet. Oh my god, I'm not as flexible as I used to be. Oh, that was terrible. I'm gonna die on this recording. But basically, he does a lot of kicks and stuff like that, right? So, I took a lot of inspirations from how capoeira fighters are. They use a lot more kicks and kickboxing, karate uses a lot more powerful kicks. So he kind of has that in his arsenal and whatnot, right? Obviously, he also has like tinted layered like metal laced shoes, so that can protect him from like sword blocks and stuff like that. And also his legs are durable as is, so they can also deflect sword stuff and whatnot. But basically, he uses that in his combats, and with him having really long legs, he can run really fast, right? So that also is one of his abilities and whatnot. But I'm still kind of working on that. With Mohawk, he's the opposite of Tall. Instead of using kicks, he uses punches and whatnot, right? So he's more of a boxer kind of style kind of character. But there is another character that I have. I'm still kind of working on him, and I forgot his name, but basically, instead of him being a vampire, he is known as a whampire. Again, I'm still kind of working on him, but basically, he is a undead fighter, and he has boxing gloves that have spikes on the end of them, and if he hits you with it, he absorbs your life force and whatnot. So he's going to be an antagonist of the team, turn ally and whatnot. Again, I humbly apologize. I'm still kind of covering from the stupid sore throat. But basically, that's kind of what I have so far for Tall for a Goblin. Again, that's going to be more of a serialized series. Different arcs and stuff like that. And obviously, Tall's going to get himself a nice little goblin girlfriend, and her name is known as Shaw T. If you're from Atlanta, you know that Shaw T is like shoddy and whatnot, but Shaw T is like is a lingo for shorty. So like it's like, I don't know how to call it. It's not a double entendre, but it's like shorty, shoddy, Shaw T. You following what I'm saying? But basically, she is a pirate captain, and she falls head over heels for Tall, for his bravery and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. But that's kind of what I have for Tall for a Goblin. Again, these are just like brief introductions of what I have so far for these characters. I'm probably going to make myself some tea after this, all this darn coughing, Jesus. But let's talk about Hopalong Valley, which again is kind of still in the writing works. I have so many stories I want to tell with these characters, and along with the 3 other universes I'm working on, so it's just kind of, my mind's been focusing on that, more on this, but still want to let this out there, kind of give you guys a heads up of what I've been doing in the meantime. But what is Hopalong Valley like? So Hopalong Valley basically focuses on a bunch of rabbits down in a place called Hopalong Valley, right? So not going to go into a lot of detail, but basically the 6 rabbit characters we're going to be focusing on. Branch, who is more of a farmer like rabbit. She is basically like the mom of the group. She's kind of the oldest and the most mature. The main character of this story is known as Sparky Smarts. He is basically like the wizard. He's kind of like the nerd of the group. He like has a magic wand and can cast spells and whatnot. Then there's Frosty Whiskers, who is basically like the fun-loving, fun-having, party-making, like party girl and whatnot. She has a crush on Sparky Smarts and whatever. And then you have Barney Blitz. He is basically the athlete guy of the group. You know, he very much likes competition and is a skateboarder and, you know, does a lot of different tricks and stuff like that. Then there's Mary Cottonheart, and she is basically like the heart of the group. She is the most kind, she's the most loving, and the most caring of the group, and she makes sure that everyone's okay. And then there's Willow Clovers. There we go. So many characters, so many rabbits. But basically, think of her as like the diva of the group. She very much like, not to say that she's vain or anything, but she very much like, you know, she takes care of herself. She's very much well groomed, and compared to all the other rabbits, she actually has like little shoes on, and it makes her like, she doesn't want to like, you know, hop around. She's a lot more dainty and whatnot. But you know, those are the main characters that we're going to be focusing on in this story, and they go on like, you know, I would like to say that this series is a lot more episodic, but it still has like a couple of mini arcs and whatnot. And actually, I'm, you know, speaking of Mary, there's actually a little arc that she kind of, not she alone, but basically there's another character that's introduced, and he honestly is one of my favorite, like, not only design characters, but also one of my favorite written ones. This one is known as Jonah, or General Hippo. So basically who General Hippo is that he was created by the main villain of the story, known as Dmitri Gortash. Dmitri Gortash is the satyr who gave into darkness and rejected the sun, which is the light, you know, the all-powerful being of the show and whatnot, right? So, you know, he embraced the darkness, or in this show it's known as the hate and whatnot. So he basically became a full A-grade hater, right? But, you know, that's kind of, he created not only General Hippo, but the rest of the like generals. They're known as the Seasons of Woe. And basically, they're like his little tiny private golem army. There's General Raven, General Cheetah, General Hyena, General Kangaroo, and there was a replacement for General Hippo, and that being General Rhino. So, you know, obviously they are the main antagonistic force of Hopalong Valley, you know, whatnot. So they basically all, you know, try to ruin Hopalong Valley by, you know, destroying it or having hate influence the rabbits and whatnot. But he gets, General Hippo, or Jonah, gets introduced, and him and Mary, basically how he gets introduced is that he is this destructive force of nature and no one can stop him. It's like, oh my god, oh, it truly is the end of Hopalong Valley. If he gets to that castle, it's all done for, game over, man. Alien reference. But when Mary sees him, she's like, instead of fighting him, have you tried talking to him? And everyone's like looking at her like she's crazy, right? It's like, no, there's no talking to him. He's a monster. He's just this giant stone being who is made to destroy. And it's like, have you tried talking to him? And they were like, no. So she basically does what she does best and makes him a nice little picnic. And long story short, you know, obviously with Mary questioning Jonah and whatnot, Jonah's like, I am General Hippo and I'm here to destroy the castle. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more sophisticated and a lot more, you know, better written. But basically, this is just like, you know, the TLDR of it, right? So, you know, and you know, Mary is like, oh, but why do you want to do it? And it's like, for my master. And it's like, but why do you want to do it? And it's like, for my master. And she's like, are you sure there's nothing else to it? You don't want to get anything out of it? And this kind of puts him in like this weird cycle of like, why am I doing this? Like, you know, because at that point he was, you know, he was captured by the bunnies and whatnot, right? And he was kept down in a cage for like thousands and thousands of years. So in a way, you know, it seemed like Gortash kind of just gave up on him and left him there to rot. So he's doing this for Gortash, but Gortash never really did anything for him. And so basically he has this existential crisis of like, what am I? Who am I? Am I machine? Am I beast? What am I and whatnot? And then Jonah goes on this nice little journey and arc where he confronts his master, and obviously he has help with all the other rabbits. And then the day is saved, and Jonah's, or General Hippo, I guess you can say, technically dies, but then the sun gives him a chance for rebirth and allows him to come back as Jonah, a real life hippo. So that's basically what I have so far. Again, this series is going to be a lot more, I guess you can say, episodic, but there are going to be some serialized stuff where it focuses on different characters and different arcs and whatnot. There's even going to be one where it focuses on Barney and him being accepted by his parents and whatnot, especially with him wanting to be a skateboarder. His parents want him to do other things because, in life, skateboarding's not really going to get you far unless you're really going to get into it, right? So, it's just one of those things where it's just, it's like there are going to be some episodes where it is focused on different types of characters and, their storylines and whatnot, but it's also going to be more serialized, or a lot more episodic, and, what happens in that episode happened in that episode, go on from there, right? So that's kind of all I have really today. It's not really, a long video, and I apologize for that, especially after going that, a couple of week hiatus. But, I was just busy doing a couple of other things, celebrating Christmas with my family and celebrating New Year's with my girlfriend and whatnot. So, I'm a busy man, and I apologize. But, this is just kind of me kind of yapping to you guys, kind of like getting this out there. And I have these ideas in the back of my head that I want to get out on there, but I just don't know how to approach it, right? And heck, I even have another story that I'm focusing on that's going to be a lot more like Halloween themed. Not to say that it's going to be just like for Halloween, but basically it focuses on this like girl who's obsessed with like horror and whatnot, right? Like horror slasher films. We all knew that one girl. We all knew that one girl who was obsessed with like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers to a weird, really weird degree. But basically she was into like slasher films and whatnot, right? But then she finds this book that her mother made that sends her to another dimension where these slashers are real, but they're actually fighting for their freedom in this thing known as the Terror Dome. And I'm still kind of working on that because I think there's already a thing called a Terror Dome. So I gotta look that up, but I guess I'll call it the Horror Arena or the Slasher Dome. I'll call it the Slasher Dome. That sounds pretty cool. But basically it focuses on these different types of characters that were familiar in pop culture, like Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers and whatnot. Not to say that they're going to be exactly the same, but I'm still kind of working on how that's going to work. And basically I have this, I already have this character that's the Jason stand-in, I guess you could say. He's not exactly Jason, but, he has like elements of Jason Voorhees. His name is Jacob Varners. I know, creative, right? But basically he is this hockey player that has this hockey stick scythe, and he can also control ice. So, that's pretty cool and whatnot. And I have a couple of other characters I'm going to draw down on paper. But that's kind of what I have so far. So, even when it's all said and done, when it comes down to these stories and these characters, I'm always writing. I'm always thinking of these like new ideas and trying to think how to implement them into their own little subsectors and their own little side stories and whatnot. And heck, I even have another story, I'm still kind of working on it as well, but it's known as Hard at Hardware. And this actually came to me in a dream, as most of my creations do, but basically it focuses on this post-apocalyptic world where it's taken over by these aliens known as the managers. I know it sounds stupid, but just kind of follow along with me. Basically these managers run these different types of stores, whether it's retail, fast food, furniture, it doesn't matter. As long as there's a way that they can sell it, they can sell it. They took over this world and they have these workers known as employees. these employees have different types of powers and stuff like that. So I'm still kind of working on that, but you know, it's more or less like another story that is developed in my head, right? So even when it's all said and done and I'm finished with Chronicle and Legend and D.A.D, which, you know, how I, you know, in that is going to be with a big crossover event. And, you know, obviously all the characters will have their own little endings and whatnot. Some may die, others may live, others may be reborn. We never know. But, you know, basically all I'm trying to say is that, you know, even when it's all said and done, I'm always creating, I'm always writing, I'm always having ideas in the back of my head. Look at that. Like that, like how the kind of sun came in while I was talking about my ideas and like that. And that's pretty cool. I like that. But you know, when it's all said and done, when it comes down to the sort of thing, I love writing and I love drawing. And obviously you guys can see that from my videos and whatnot. But, you know, I just kind of wanted to make this video today because I wanted to kind of let you guys in on what's going on that isn't really focused on Chronicle and Legend. Again, these are more or less kind of very much not as developed as these other universes I've created, and obviously that's because I'm not, like, I grew up making Chronicle and Legend and D.A.D. I grew up making that, so I had a lot more time to spend with them than I have with this. You know, not to say that I don't really care about, you know, this universe and these different types of stories and whatnot that are presented in front of me, but it's just I want to kind of start on these three before working on these stories, right? You know, and who knows, maybe I can, when my stuff does take off and I make enough money to where I'm able to hire people who are able to kind of distribute themselves and make some stuff in my image, but how I want these stories to play out, you know, who knows, maybe I could get it out faster, you know, but that's all up to you, all to you viewers out there. I know you guys are watching and I'm glad for everything that is happening right now. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but guess what? I'm going to say it so I'm blue in the face. I just want to thank all of you for watching. And for all those who will see me in the recommendations, don't worry, I don't bite. Click on a video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with that weird uncle that visits at the family reunion but stands in the corner all the time. We don't really like to talk about him, but he's family, you know? But with all that being said, I have been AfroMandias, and I thank you all so much for watching. You know, this is 2025, new year, new me, and I'm glad to continue on with this, you know, YouTube channel and Instagram page. And I just want to say that I love you all very, very much. And again, I have been AfroMandias. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay frosty, and stay fresh, Afrolytes, and I'll see y'all next time.